I want to read another question, which is rather short, and then pose a third from Russia. Both of these, I think, are worthy to be grouped together. The first is from another gentleman who you know, Mr. Alexander Nagorny, who's the deputy editor of the Zavtra weekly newspaper, which is based out of Moscow. And he asks questions which have implicitly been answered by what you've said. His first is, he says, my first question is a future-oriented one. What are the prerequisites for far-reaching U.S.-Russian political, economic, and financial cooperation? And I think you've highlighted that. And his second question is there any possibility that a future administration will take strategic steps such as ending the power of the Federal Reserve and returning it to the Congress, along with the return to the Glass-Steagall law? Now, this second question is a little bit more lengthy, but I think it's worthwhile reading because it contains some important strategic intelligence which pertains to, actually, Professor Panarin's question about the destabilization of Russia. This question comes from a longtime Russian political and human rights activist. He says, Mr. LaRouche, decades ago, you warned of the current world financial crisis, and you demonstrated that free market liberalism is a dead end, imposed by an anti-human, parasitical, transnational so-called elite. Now this crisis threatens to become a global catastrophe. And when that elite can't get what they want by force, blackmail, and agentry, they attack national sovereignty under the cover of demagogy about democracy, freedom, and human rights. Our country has been attacked using all of those methods at once. Now we have a shameful farce where some members of the ruling caste, liberals like the former Minister of Finance Kudrin, former Governor Boris Nemtsov, the oligarch Mikhail Prokhorov, and the Yale University-trained blogger Alexei Navalny, are parading around as the would-be leaders of citizens, who actually do have good reason to protest. In this situation, my concern is that the current Russian leadership will either voluntarily capitulate to this opposition circus, or will be forced out after attempting to carry out something like Gorbachev's perestroika policy. Russia could disintegrate during such a process with ethnic conflicts and separatism. As you know, he says, we have a presidential campaign underway from which representatives of the patriotic opposition like General Ivashov have been excluded. Not long before the campaign started, the Obama administration named, now this is important, Michael McFaul as ambassador to Russia. He is not a career diplomat. He is a Russian studies specialist who for many years has been tied to the liberal reformers. People I know were told by McFaul personally that when he came to the Soviet Union in the late 1980s and the early 90s on various democratization projects, he was never interested in achieving democracy as such, but explicitly rather the collapse of the Soviet Union. On Monday of this week, McFaul presented his credentials, and on Tuesday he met with representatives of the liberal opposition to the Kremlin. My questions are, what political circles does McFaul represent? What are their goals in appointing McFaul as ambassador to Russia at such a moment of tension? Has Michael McFaul been sent here with the same intention of breaking up Russia as he had toward the Soviet Union over 20 years ago?
Exactly. And McFaul is not really an American. His pedigree, his political pedigree, is totally British. And of course, Susan Rice is his sidekick. So we know exactly what this is. This is a foul ball put into office as a diplomat now by a foul ball called the President of the United States and Susan Rice. And if you know what Susan Rice is, now these people, I'm perfectly free to say the truth about these people, because what they have done against me and against Russians at the same time is a known fact. These guys are foul balls who don't belong in office in any nation. And the sooner we understand that, the better off, safer we'll all be.